Remember, the 5th of November, the gunpowder treason and plot. Welcome to today's SitRep. Yes, it is the 5th of November, which in the UK is usually celebrated as Bonfire Night or Guy Fawkes Night. Made more infamous, I think, by the movie V for Vendetta and then by the hacker group Anonymous for wearing those masks. You know, those masks with the little mustache goatee thing? That's actually a Guy Fawkes mask. From the 5th of November, being Guy Fawkes Night or Bonfire Night, celebrating or commemorating, I should say, the stopping of the gunpowder treason, which happened in underneath the House of Lords, House of Commons, House of Lords, I think, maybe. Somebody can correct me on that. My UK history is not so strong. Anyway, they were going to blow them up, and King James I, they were going to kill them all. They were Protestants, I think. The histories say that the conspirators to blow them all up with this gunpowder was they were Catholic, and they wanted to blow up the Protestants. However, it might have just been that they were oppressed by the current government and they were trying to break free like the renegade mavericks that they were. They were caught, they were tortured, they were tried and found guilty. They were then hung, drawn, and quartered. A little bit of history for you on today's SitRep, the 5th of November. There you go. Anyway, this is the SitRep, the situation report, where some strange bearded dude from Australia is talking at you. I'm Gads. This is Ragnarok Survival. We go through news stories and try and look at it from the perspective of prepping, i.e. Emergency preparedness, keeping ourselves more prepared for things that are coming down the pipeline or that may happen in the future. So trying to become more self-reliant human beings, more responsible human beings, and hopefully keep ourselves, our families, and our communities safer and in a better position. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining today. I appreciate it. I also appreciate every one of you who have been hitting the subscribe button or following on Instagram. If you're watching on Instagram, we just clicked over 600 subscribers on YouTube, which might seem like utterly nothing to you. You may not care about that. I, however, do care about that. We're at 601 this morning when I opened up this thing. So thank you very much if you haven't been following along and you have hit the subscribe button, whether you did it ages ago or whether you did it just in the past 24 hours. I appreciate it. And hopefully I can spew some sort of dribble out today that is worth your while. Also, thank you very much if you're listening on the podcast. If you're listening on the poddy, the podster, pods, podaroo, the old podo. I appreciate you too. Thanks. Anyway, let's jump into it today, shall we? Where to start today? Okay, I'm going to start with this story because it's a little bit down my list, but it's probably the one that is bugging me the most this morning. It's about the USA. It's about Fortress USA. So I read this one and I got to say, it pissed me off. I'm freaking angry. I am pissed off. USA is one of my favorite places on earth. I love it. I have some fantastic friends there that I love visiting and I miss them greatly. I haven't seen them in years now because of the lockdowns. Well, the TSA has just come out and they have said that they're extending their rule that the unvaccinated, those unclean folk, cannot enter into the USA until at least January 8th next year. I may have just outed myself on where I sit on that scale, but obviously now I still cannot go to the US, and it shits me because I want to go there. I want to visit my old friends. I want to start connecting with more people over there because there are people who join me. Yeah, here's one right now. Savage the Wild. Hey, bub. What's going on? Glad you could join me this morning, which I imagine is probably nighttime for you. Not sure what the time is there. Anyway, This actually goes against what the US CDC has recommended. It contradicts their documents as far as vaccinated or unvaccinated people. We've got the evidence is clearly in. Now, here's one thing: with all the shit that's been coming up recently with the whole amnesty thing and all this kind of crap. One thing that I love to throw back at people right now. I'm not a big one for going like, nah, throw it back in your face. But there's one thing where I got hammered with at the start. People were like, follow the science. The science is in. Why can't you just follow the science? And I'm like, fool, I'm an actual scientist. All right. I am a qualified sports and exercise scientist, which is in the health field, which is about the human body and how it works. And I do know how to read peer-reviewed journal articles, and I have been pouring through them. I'm also looking at the statistical data that's coming in from vaccination rates, from infection rates that are going on around the world, and I have a brain in my head. I can see how those two are not fitting together the way you think they are. So this whole follow the science crap that's been going on, or it's not. I think we should follow the science, but not capital T, capital S, the science, TM trademark. Brought to you by Pfizer. Not that science, actual science. Actual science is the scientific method where we test and we prove or we disprove theories that are out there. Anyway, that's what I believe science is, and I believe we should all have the same access to that. That's not just something we should go, well, I don't understand science, so I'm not going to do it. Like, if you've got a brain, you're a scientist. Okay, if you can read, you're a scientist. You don't even need to read, actually, but it helps. So this is the sort of thing that I'm talking about, where now the science is in. Newsflash: vaccines do not do what you think they do. Quote unquote vaccines, because in my books, the word vaccine still has the meaning of stopping infection of something or limiting your chance of being infected by something. That's what I take vaccine to mean. So this thing that you get injected into you, which does not do that, does not qualify as a vaccine. Anyway, it doesn't do that. It doesn't stop people getting infected. Allegedly, it stops severe infection. Does it though? I mean, that's actually a really tough thing to prove. So I have seen some of the data around this. I can see some positive correlation there, maybe, but confounding factors are abound also within that. I'm getting off the point here. TSA is blocking people from coming into the US, and they're doing it on an unjustified foundation. There is no justification for why they're doing it now. It shits me. All right. This is I take this personally. This one I take personally today. Usually I'm just sort of looking at stuff and try and segregate myself from it. But this one, it just really fucking shit me today. That's all I can say about that. Language warning, by the way. My French is way off. But yeah, I'm kind of hoping. I was holding out the hope that like at some stage I'm going to be able to get back into the US, and like that's being pushed back into 2023, and it's going to get pushed back further, I believe, in 2023, unless people actually start pushing against this. It's not my country. I can't do anything about it. I can't sit there on the outside and go, hey, let me in. No, I can actually. You know what I could do? I could say that I'm an immigrant and I could walk across the friggin' border down to Mexico. So maybe that's my loophole, because that seems to be pretty porous at the moment. Anyway, let me know. Let me know if you're in the US and you agree with this or you disagree with it, or whatever, what your feeling is, or what the sentiment is around you with other people that you talk to from the US. Do you think it's a good thing that you're blocking unvaccinated people from coming in? Do you think it's a bad thing? Do you think it's, I don't really care, whatever? Let me know, because I'm interested to know what the average, what the vibe on the street is in the US. I'd really like to know. Because if everyone doesn't want, like, if everyone in the US is sitting there going like, no, we don't want foreign unvaccinated people in, then I'll be like, okay, cool. Well, I won't come in. I'm not coming. Savage the Wild says, we'll smuggle you here into Appalachia. All right. We'll devise a plan. It's going to involve a boat. No, a boat plane. Oh, yeah. Now we're talking. Scuba gear. How can we make this more fancy? Halo drop. What else is happening in the US? Let's talk about Twitter stuff for a second, because I'm just onto it. Obviously, we've got the Elon Musk takeover. We've got a whole heap of things that are coming out about this. Very interesting pushback now. So the pushback has been from certain elements of society, and I'll let you fill in the dots. And they're saying, hey, we can't allow this to happen. This is creating hate speech within Twitter. You, company who supports Twitter and advertises on Twitter, you need to pull yourself out now. And companies, as they want to do at the moment, are bowing to the noisiest of society, not necessarily the best thinking society, not necessarily the strongest parts of society, not even necessarily the largest parts of society, just the noisiest and usually blue or purple haired elements of society. So they're bowing to the pressure and they're pulling out. This could be a big deal, right? You go, oh no, that's going to hurt the bottom line of Twitter. Ooh, God. I just want to name some of the companies that have pulled out their advertising so far. Volkswagen. Okay. General Mills. Pfizer. I mean, if it was me, if I was sitting here, I'd be like, cool, awesome. See you later. I wouldn't want these people advertising on my platform if I owned it. I see this as a net win, really, for Twitter, or Elon Musk, as it were. All right, let's jump into some real-ish sort of news. I just saw Bulge jumped on here, so this might be of interest to you, my friend. Evergrande chairman's mansion seized by lender. A Hong Kong mansion belonging to the Evergrande Group's chairman. All right, I'll give it a crack. Hui Ka-wan, has been seized by lender Chinese construction bank. Reuters reports. So this is alluding, if you guys don't know what this whole Evergrande thing is about, Evergrande, I think, is the largest construction company in the world, Chinese construction company, and they've been in a bad way for a long time. They were in a real bad way, and I think my take on it, at least, was this. If they were any other company outside of China, if they were any smaller than they were, and they weren't in China, who can manipulate and control their market to a great degree, because they're communists and that's what they do, they would have collapsed. They would have gone under, and it would have pulled in a whole heap of companies with them. But through the pure force of will that is communism, and the fake facade that is communism, China, the government, has made somehow this company stay alive in some sort of Frankensteinian, zombified form. So it continues on. Just to give you a heads up, the biggest construction company in the world has hundreds, thousands of other companies connected to it. If it goes down, all money that it owes to those companies does not get paid out. So then they go down with it, and then they, spreading out to how many companies they're connected to, start to get pulled in as well. It's the sort of thing that if this company had gone down fully and allowed to go down the way it was, it quite possibly could have destroyed the entire world's economy. And I'm not speaking hyperbole here. I'm not waxing lyrical. Like it's very feasible that could have happened. The amount of money that we're looking at here, because that would be the keystone, really. That falls, the entire Chinese construction sector falls with it, which the Chinese financial system goes in with it. And the West is notoriously overexposed to the Chinese financial sector right now. So anyway, we're starting to see things like the bankruptcy payouts and reclamations starting to happen now. I'm still very interested in this. This has been swept under the rug by a lot of people, by China mainly, but there's a heap of reporting on it. And then it just kind of went out of the news for a while, went out of fashion. It's like I don't want to deal with this. Like, it's too much. I can't even look at this. But it's starting to creep back into the news now. So, yeah, we're looking at that. It's going to be interesting what happens there. It's still not resolved. There is no way this is resolved. The Chinese government did a really good job of kicking the can down the street, but eventually we're going to come across that can. Take the Ride says hi from the Carolinas. Good to hear from you. Thanks for joining me today. Reparations. Y'all owe me money because I breathe. Yeah, right. One more. There was one more from the US. Where are you? I think it's from the US. Oh no, there's a couple from the US. But this one from the US, because I was just speaking about kicking the can down the street. And here's a classic example. There was a whole big kerfuffle going on about railway issues, railway strikes within the US, which is going to obviously exacerbate supply chain problems, which also exacerbates inflation. Inflation, hot topic at the moment. And supply chain problems are a hot topic as well, starting to ease off, but this would have thrown a massive spanner in that works. Think about it from this of the perspective of the Biden government. They're looking at it going, okay, we're coming into midterms, or midterms are or have occurred as we speak. But preceding that, they're like, we have to do everything to make things okay right now. So they're going to pass the buck. They're going to glaze things over. They're going to kick that can down the street as much as they can, even if they know it's going to cause more pain in the future. That's essentially what they did with this railway strike problem. There was the proverbial can kicked down the street, and everyone was like, oh, okay, problem solved. And anyone who had their head in the game, there's a few people that I was reading who were actually quite involved in this, were like, this has not been solved. You have put a Band-Aid on what is a amputated leg, essentially. So congratulations. This is about to get a lot worse. Well, now it's coming back. Threat of a nationwide strike on US freight railway workers still looms. 2 unions have rejected a proposal deal with railroads, while 6 have approved it. So there's still 2 out of the 8 that are saying no. Others are still out of the 8 that have made a decision, that is. Others are still deciding, with votes of the 2 largest rail workers' unions coming mid-November. So watch that space. Mid-November is when we're looking at. A lot going on in the US at the moment. Obviously, the midterms have just gone, or we're in the midst of them at the moment. We're in the mid of the midterms, I think. There's also rumblings about we're starting to get to that point where maybe certain people who want to start running for president in 2 years will start to show their hands. And there is some reporting at the moment that that's about to come in the pipeline. We're looking at mid-November for that to come in. So trust me, you're not going to have to keep your eye out for that one. It will be very loud. The screams that you will hear from the streets of Portland and LA and wherever other New York probably leftist people reside are going to be immense. John Holseth says, greetings, mate. Greetings to you, my friend. Welcome. Take the Ride says, United States railroads are buying up guns and ammunition like crazy. Why is that? Do they think their goods are going to be held up on that train? Giving new meaning to Crazy Train, Ozzy Osbourne. All aboard! I saw Ozzy in Melbourne a few years ago, and I'm thinking, I'm going to see Ozzy Osbourne. I'm like, I grew up in the 80s, my older brother as well, heaps into, Metallica, as you can see in the background there. Sisters into Guns N' Roses. Brother raised me on all the old classics. Your Megadeth, your Judas Priest, your Ozzy Osbourne. So anyway, Ozzy Osbourne comes out to Melbourne. I go see him. I'm like, man, this is going to be another one of these sad things where I go see one of these icons from when I was a kid, and it's just, he's old and falling apart. He is old and falling apart, but damn, can that dude put on a show? I was shocked. I said, I don't know, maybe he's in his 80s or something, but like that, I'm like, that's my goal. I mean, not to be like Ozzy Osbourne, because he's not all there, but the way he was moving around the stage, the energy he puts out at that age, I'm like, that's what I need to be doing. That's my goal. Definitely not to be playing on stage at like 80 years old, but to have that level of energy and that output. Ozzy has the best musicians playing with him. For that reason, he will always be good, or they will. I agree with that. One of my all-time favorite artists is a dude called Zakk Wylde. Zakk Wylde, I highly recommend his work there. Black Label Society is one of his bands, but he took over from Randy Rhoads after the tragic passing of Randy Rhoads in back in the day. Was that 80s at some stage? Zakk Wylde took over. Now he rocks out on his own accord too. Funny guy as well. Anyway, enough Ozzy Osbourne stuff. Cocaine is a hell of a drug. France is desperately trying to restart nuclear reactors, but labor union strike delays maintenance. France generates roughly 70% of its electricity from nuclear. However, many of them have been closed down for maintenance, some due to corrosion-related issues. Currently, only 31 units out of 56 are reportedly operating. So the company that operates them, EDF, has pledged to restart all shutdown reactors before winter. Time's running out. To avoid power shortages in the country. And I've said this in the past that France, as far as I see it, as far as Europe goes, is probably in the mainland Europe in the best position for the coming energy crisis this winter. I think maybe some of the eastern countries are going to fare a lot worse. Germany's not going to do so well. Norway, Sweden, I mean, you've got hydro, and they do, especially Norway, and I think they're a net exporter of oil or fuel products at least, so they'll be okay. Plus, they have a lot of wood to burn if they want to go that route as well. But France has stuck to its nuclear guns, and I think because of that, they're going to be okay. However, a lot of their nuclear requires maintenance. This is kind of worldwide too, with nuclear power plants, that they require this maintenance, and they've sort of been coming up to this point where we've been pushing away from nuclear for a number of years now, chasing the green dream. We're waking up from that dream and realizing it's a fucking nightmare, that we're not going to be able to get there. So now we're like, oh shit, aging nuclear facilities, we need to get back in there, because aging nuclear facilities isn't just like, oh, it's less efficient, it's not going to work. It's Chernobyl, it's 3 Mile Island. That's what we're talking about. It's Fukushima. That's where we end up with aging or unmaintained nuclear power plants. So pretty big deal, pretty important that gets done. And again, we've got those sneaky strikes sliding in all over the world, strikes happening here and there. And I've said this for ages that, I mean, when it comes to unions, I can understand why unions exist, and I can see the pros of unions, definitely. I can also see a big communist tie when it comes to unions. And so, like, there's a double-edged sword there with unions. Quite often, they'll use any situation that benefits them to get what they want. Right now, when human beings are at the verge of suffering, in pain, in freezing to death, literally freezing to death and not having energy, that's when they'll be like, you know what, now we're going to strike. Yeah, now we're going to strike. They're going to get what they want, I think, out of this, but I find it a little bit underhanded personally. Take the Ride says, I photographed a Zakk Wylde Les Paul guitar, yellow and black spirals. For those who don't know them, it's this very iconic guitar that Zakk Wylde has, Les Paul guitars, and it's got like these circles on it, black and white or black and yellow circles. Just awesome looking guitar. Love it. Nuclear reactors scare me, says Take the Ride. With the increasing threat of earthquakes, do they not scare you? They do scare me to a certain extent. I think we can mitigate a lot of circumstances, though. I think we have the engineering technology now and understanding on how to actually build reactors that aren't as fallible to things like earthquakes. But certainly we can avoid earthquake-prone areas. That would be primarily one of the things that I would be doing or thinking about. We can also think about different forms of nuclear reactors. So a lot of the technologies, if you start to get into it, if you start to really go down the rabbit hole with this, a lot of the technologies that we're starting to emerge today, if we start investing in them, if we start going down that path, are actually a lot safer than what we have traditionally used as far as nuclear reactors go. That they don't have the potential for these kind of meltdown events and these catastrophic precipitative events that cannot be stopped. So there's pros and cons definitely to nuclear. And I'm not like totally pro nuclear. I'm not like, we have to go nuclear. All I'm saying is I just don't see another way around it. If we want to continue our society the way it is going, the way it's been running, to any sort of level of that, the energy use that we are used to, the energy use that we are kind of predicting that we're going to need for the future, if we want that and not to have a collapse, then without some other magic technology coming along, I don't know how we do it exactly without nuclear involvement in a lot of these places. I mean, somewhere like that can mine and burn coal, they might be okay. Like Australia, we mine coal, we burn it, but we sell most of it. But people, countries that have the resource, countries that have a lot of water, a lot of running water, and can set up, hydroelectric generation of power, maybe that can work. But the idea that we can switch wholesale to solar has not proven itself yet, or wind, or any renewable resource yet. Not that we should shut them down. We should still go down that path. But like I said, I think nuclear has its definite drawbacks, some of them being catastrophic. But if we want to not sit here and watch society collapse and crumble around us, then that might be one of our only cards that we've got to play at this stage. That's what I think about it, at least. Again, feel free to argue with me. Is somebody arguing with me here? John Holseth says Galen Windsor, one of the first nuclear engineers in the US, held speeches on how they fooled us. Radiation is not at all as dangerous as they claim. Now, this actually I find interesting, because I've read many different things about nuclear from the perspective of like, how do I keep myself safe from nuclear? Nuclear fallout, radioactive dust, radioactive particles, whatever it is. And there is this whole idea that when something's nuclear, that entire area is poisoned and no one can go anywhere near it for thousands and thousands of years. And if you do, you'll start crumbling and melting away, like you've just looked at the Ark of the Covenant in Raiders of the Lost Ark. But there's other stuff that from the actual scientific side where it's like, yeah, it's bad. Within a week, that threat is halved. Within 3 years, that threat is under 10% of what it was. Within 10 years, that threat is 0.01% of what it was. And I'm like, hang on, I'm getting two totally different pictures here. So I do find this interesting, and I would love for somebody who knows a lot more about this than me to actually send me a message. Let me know what you want. Let me know what you know, and let me know if you've got good sources for this sort of information about actual effects of radioactive materials and like how long it lasts and how we can actually protect ourselves against them. Renee C says they are rebranding nuclear as green energy. Yes, that happened within the EU area. They came out, I want to say it's probably about 4 weeks ago now, and then sort of said like, there's a line and this is green and this is red, and nuclear was here, and they're like, oh, we're just moving that line to here now, and nuclear is now green. I remember that happening. I was just like, oh, okay, that's convenient. Yeah, we'll tell that to all the dead animals around Chernobyl. Again, I was listening to something just the other day, and they were talking about animals around Chernobyl, and there was a lot of dead animals around Chernobyl, but what they're seeing now is a lot of animals that have no effect, they're claiming. I haven't personally been to Chernobyl, so I don't know. Again, if anyone has been to Chernobyl or is in Chernobyl now listening to this, if you're in Chernobyl now listening to this, maybe you got something better to do with your time than listen to me. But again, like conflicting information that I'm getting around radioactive material. I left my union after they sided with the government and didn't console workers during the pandemic, says Renee C. That's a real shame. Around Chernobyl correct, says John Holseth. We had radiation rain clouds here after Chernobyl. High radiation. We had to feed down the livestock before slaughter for 15 years to remove the radiation stored in the fat. Interesting. That is very interesting. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, nuclear. I'm neither here nor there with it, to be honest. But again, I think it's one of these things that we do need to think of. If we want power, if you want that sweet, sweet electricity, I don't know how else you're going to get it. But I mean, I know how else you could get it. You could support yourself by getting your own electricity. So I don't think on the scale that a lot of people think about, where most people are totally reliant on outside systems or systems outside their own control, i.e. the grid, for electricity, that we can generate enough solar electricity for that kind of scale. I kind of think that, and from what I've actually looked into and studied and read about this, that a community, a smaller community, is probably the limit that we can actually power solar. And that requires most of the individuals within that community actually having solar panels themselves as well, and battery setups themselves, then possibly a communal one as well. That's where I think we go. For us personally, like, this is something that I always talk about investing in, that if you're the kind of person who is concerned about energy, as I am, I have many things that run off electricity. I have many fine things here that are electrical. So I want those to keep running. I did shoot a goat or two with a friend the other day, and that is now sitting in my drop freezer. I would like that to not go off. All that effort that we've put in, the many hunting trips that we did not get anything, and then finally we got something. I don't want it to now spoil and go off because I don't have electricity. So I have solar power here. If the electricity turns off, I have a backup for just that situation. All right, let's talk about the food situation in Australia. Australia is a net exporter of food. One of the big exports that we put out there is wheat. Yay, us. Floods. Do you know what lots and lots of water does to wheat? Not good things. Not good things, apparently. Flooding damages $150 million worth of wheat stores in the New South Wales. The New South Wales. Is there an old South Wales? I've been to Wales. Actually, for a hot minute, lived in Wales. I don't remember them ever referring to South Wales necessarily. It was just all Wales. Anyway, we're part of the new one. And down here in the New South Wales, we've had quite a bit of rain come in. In fact, we've had pretty shitty flooding for a while now, on and off. One of the effects of this is we're just coming up to the season now where we're going to be harvesting wheat. It's getting to that point of fruition where we reap what we sow. I'm not a wheat farmer, but the wheat farmers do. About 120,000 hectares of wheat just got wiped out and it was right at that point where it was almost ready to harvest. So it's just been destroyed because of these floods. And they're saying that estimate is conservative as well, 120,000 hectares. Could it get better? Well, we're predicted to have more rain this summer. So it's not looking good. Again, like Australia, we feed ourselves pretty well here, but if we start to think about the world situation of what's been happening with wheat, especially, that Australian wheat going out overseas would have been a boon for the rest of the world. Well, yet another blow to the world's food system. Again, yet another data point that I like to throw up there so we can see what's going on. We can see what's coming down the pipeline. And no surprises here, but my prediction is food prices will go up. The only way is up, baby, for you and me now. I should stop singing. I've worked all week and I was yelling at people at work as part of my job. And my voice is a bit husky. Renee C says, more rain and season out of whack in Queensland and still wearing jumpers. Do you ever wear jumpers in Queensland? That shocks me. Now, of course you do. You become acclimatized to the hot, humid conditions up there. But yeah, it has been cold up there. It has been cold down here too. I was just saying that generally speaking, somewhere in between the 2nd to 4th of November, down in my area, that's the point where we're like, bang, winter has broken. We're over the hump of spring now. We are focused on summer. Get your summer crops in. Yesterday, it was 4 degrees here in my hometown. So, yeah, cool. It's supposed to be warm. I'm still going to plant some tomatoes today. South Korea. What's South Korea up to? They scrambled jets after detecting 180 North Korean warplanes near border. Still not good signs coming out of here, North Korea, South Korea. Still a lot of rhetoric coming out about nuclear, about retaliation from South Korea's side, about the US getting involved here. Not great stuff. Not great stuff at all. So, again, this is just geopolitical stuff, but this is the kind of thing that can kick off a number of other things. If I was a gambling man, I do love a punt every now and then, and I am the world's worst gambler. I don't think I've ever won on any sporting event or horse race that I've bet on. But anyway, if I was a gambling man, like a fully gambling man, and I was looking at this and I thought, if this kicks off, I could see China moving on Taiwan. That's the sort of implication that I'm thinking about here. South Korea, North Korea kicks off. That's going to drag US attention into there as well. And I could see China going, now's our chance. Not in 5 years, not in 10 years. I think they will do something within the next 10 years as far as Taiwan's concerned. I think it'll be a lot sooner than that. But I could see them kicking off very, very quickly if there's other stuff happening in the world that distracts. Renee C says about jumpers in Queensland. We wear them but complain and whinge about it all the way. I love I'm a winter person. I love winter. Take the Ride says that water from flooding should be used to generate electricity. It's a great idea. Unfortunately, it's not consistent enough. Very boom bust when it comes to water at the moment in our country. Russia, Medvedev, what is he, president? No, ex-PM? Ex-president, now PM. Always get confused with the Russian system. Medvedev, if you haven't heard this guy talk before, he says a lot of stuff. There's a lot of shit coming out of this guy's mouth. But this one was particularly interesting for various reasons. Medvedev says Russia is fighting a sacred battle against Satan. They're strong words. In a message marking Russia's Day of National Unity, Medvedev said the task of the fatherland was to, quote, stop the supreme ruler of hell, whatever name he uses, Satan, Lucifer, or Iblis. I haven't heard that one. Iblis? He's talking about Russia needs to use different weapons, including the ability to, quote, send all our enemies to fiery Gehenna. which I think is another term for hell. It's more of the Hebrew term for hell, in my understanding. Strong language, strong words coming out of this, but this isn't actually the first time that I've heard more religious rhetoric coming from Russia. There was a lot of stuff that happened right at the start, around that March period, where people were still going like, "Why is Russia doing this? What's actually going on?" They had whatever the Russian Orthodox leader, who, in my understanding, is kind of like their version of the Pope, I guess, might be a bit good analogy to it, was coming out and saying like, this is essentially a holy war. This is what we're doing it for. There was this undertone of things that were coming out from Putin. It was kind of like holy Russian Empire type stuff that was happening, and then that kind of like disappeared for a little bit, and now we're seeing it pop up again. Holy war, definitely not something that we want to go anywhere near. Like this kind of dangerous rhetoric, dragging in another element to what is already a pretty shitty situation that's going on in this part of the world. Here's some good news, and then I'll finish off with some whatever news, some interesting prepper news, I guess. Good news, Ethiopia's new dawn, ceasefire ends devastating conflict. So I have mentioned this Ethiopian conflict that's been going on now for quite some time. But it looks like it might be, there's light at the end of the tunnel here, that there is a ceasefire. Quote, today is the beginning of a new dawn for Ethiopia, for the Horn of Africa, and indeed for Africa as a whole, said Africa Union mediator, President Olusegun Obasanjo. You notice when I say these names, I always look at the camera like, did I get that right? Probably not. But anyway, I saw this. I see this as good news. I like to try and put in some good news that not everything is doom and gloom. Not everything in the world is war and getting into more war. Sometimes we're getting relief. Sometimes we're finding peace deals. Azerbaijan, Armenia, good example of this. That might be finding some common ground and some peace deals going on there. And within Africa too, I always talk about this Africa being a massive blind spot for most of us here in the West, especially Western media. Mainstream media, that we can see stuff like this and go, okay, that's actually some relief that's going on there. Not everyone is warmongering, not everyone is pushing more into mutually assured destruction throughout the world. There is some sane, rational minds out there, we hope. Renee C says at least somewhere in the world wants peace. It's good news. All right, last one. Another story sent to me by my source on Instagram. This one stood out to me because it's kind of an example of prepping. So this is talking about. It's not a great news story because it shows us somebody in Kiev, a Ukrainian in Kiev, obviously prepping for something bad to happen. So the vibe on the street looks like in Kiev that they're preparing for the worst at the moment. So some sort of invasion, some sort of attack, something happening. But I did like the vibe of these preps. So I'll just read this verbatim. This certain individual is ready for the worst. He's filled the storage area under his fold-up bed and just about every other nook of his house, of his apartment in eastern Kiev, with water and non-perishable food. There are rolls of packing tape to seal the windows from radioactive fallout. He has a gas-fired camping stove and walkie-talkies. There's even an AR-15 rifle and a shotgun for protection, along with the boxes of ammo. Fuel canisters and spare tires are stashed by his washing machine in case he needs to leave the city in a hurry. Quote, any preparation can increase my chance to survive, end quote, he said. He's also wearing a knife and a first aid kit while being interviewed. I don't like the situation that this person's in, but I like how this person is preparing. I like how they're looking at it. I like let me point out some of the things that really warmed my cockles or maybe my subcockles. Like, the parts down there, something deep within inside me. where is it? Packing tape to seal windows from radioactivity or radioactive fallout. AR-15 rifle and shotgun with ammo for protection. This part in particular. Fuel canister and spare tires in case he needs to leave the city in a hurry. Prepping 101. All right, this is Prepping 101. And that's why I want to share that one sort of last up today. That's the extent of someone being like basically in a war zone in a country that's at war. We don't need to necessarily go to that sort of level, but we can think about some of these things and say, how is that applicable to my life as well? What kind of emergency could happen in my life? You do not need to have an AR-15 rifle and shotgun ready to go for your own security. In fact, you cannot have an AR-15 rifle if you're in Australia or New Zealand. So actually, I don't know about that in New Zealand. No, you can't have it in New Zealand anymore. No, I do remember this. It got taken off you as well. Ours got taken off us in the 90s, but that's another story for another day. But thinking about your own protection, not being reliant on some outside force to come and save you like a damsel in distress, taking ownership of your own security situation, your own survival situation. That's what I like to see. That's what I think is awesome. So that's what I'm going to leave you with today. And as always, of course, get out and garden and start gardening. Get out there, grow your own stuff. But think about your preps today. Think about this individual here, this Dmitro Bondarenko. Just going to go with that. You can't read it, so could just be making up a name. Doesn't really matter. Anyway, this individual is prepping themselves for the worst case scenario, and I think quite wisely. What would you do if you had to leave in a hurry? How much fuel is in your car right now? If you had to leave in a hurry, would you have to stop at a petrol station? So think about that today and start tinkering around the house on this 5th of November. Remember your preps on 5th of November. Thank you very much, everyone, for your comments. Thank you, Renee C. Thanks, Take the Ride. Thanks for everyone who chucked in comments. Thanks for everyone who jumped on and watched today. I really appreciate it. I appreciate all of you. Good luck with your preps. Good luck with what you're doing out in the world this weekend. Remember to keep your eyes open to what's happening around you. Remember to keep prepping. And until next time, Semper Paratus.